Before Shakespeare became a household name, another voice echoed through the halls of English literature, bold, passionate, and rebellious. Passionate and rebellious. That voice belonged to Christopher Marlowe, a poet, playwright, and controversial figure of the Elizabethan era. Marlowe's works danced between beauty and danger, love and defiance. His poetry, though sometimes overshadowed by his dramatic career and mysterious death, remains a treasure trove of lyrical brilliance. In this video, we journey into the world of Marlowe's poems, exploring the verses that captured desire, mortality, and the restless spirit of a man who lived and died too fast. Welcome to the poems of Christopher Marlowe. Christopher Marlowe, born in Canterbury in 1564, emerged into a world brimming with intellectual ferment and cultural transformation. The son of a shoemaker, John Marlowe, and his wife Catherine, young Christopher was nurtured in an environment that valued education despite its humble origins. His early years were marked by an insatiable curiosity and a prodigious intellect, traits that secured him a scholarship to the prestigious King's School in Canterbury. There, under the tutelage of scholars who recognized his brilliance, Marlowe honed the skills that would define his literary legacy. From Canterbury, Marlowe journeyed to Corpus Christi College, Cambridge, where he immersed himself in the study of classical literature, theology, and philosophy. It was here that his poetic voice began to take shape, influenced by the works of Ovid, Virgil, and Seneca. Yet, Marlowe's time at Cambridge was not without controversy. Whispers of his unorthodox views and rumored involvement in espionage would later shadow his life. These experiences, however, only deepened the complexity of his worldview, shaping the themes of ambition, power, and human frailty that permeate his poetry. The Elizabethan era, in which Marlowe flourished, was a period of unparalleled artistic vibrancy. Theatre was the heartbeat of London's cultural life, and poets like Marlowe became the architects of a new literary movement, drawing inspiration from the burgeoning Renaissance ideals of individualism and humanism. Marlowe's verses broke free from the rigid constraints of medieval morality plays. His work reflected a bold exploration of the human condition, often challenging societal norms and religious dogma. The influence of contemporaries such as Thomas Kyde and William Shakespeare cannot be overstated, as their creative exchanges fueled Marlowe's innovative spirit. Marlowe's poems, though fewer in number than his dramatic works, are masterpieces of lyrical intensity. From the haunting beauty of Hero and Leander to the philosophical depth of the passionate shepherd to his love, each piece is a testament to his mastery of language and form. His use of blank verse, characterized by its rhythmic fluidity and emotional resonance, revolutionized English poetry. Through his words, Marlowe painted vivid portraits of desire, mortality, and the eternal struggle between the earthly and the divine. As we delve deeper into the chapters that follow, this story will unravel the intricate layers of Marlowe's poetic genius. Each chapter will explore not only the historical and cultural milieu of his time, but also the enduring impact of his work on subsequent generations of poets and playwrights. From the shadowy alleys of Elizabethan London to the timeless echoes of his verses, the journey through the poems of Christopher Marlowe promises to illuminate the indelible mark left by one of literature's most enigmatic figures. Christopher Marlowe's poetic journey began not with grand declarations or formal commissions, but with the quiet alchemy of personal experience and intellectual discovery. In the bustling streets of Elizabethan London, where ideas mingled freely among scholars, actors, and common folk, Marlowe found himself immersed in a world ripe for creative exploration. Yet, it was not merely the external stimuli of his environment that shaped his early works. It was the inner workings of his mind, his boundless imagination, his restless questioning of authority, and his profound sensitivity to beauty that ignited the spark of inspiration. The first inklings of Marlowe's poetic voice can be traced back to his time at Corpus Christi College, Cambridge. Surrounded by ancient texts and engaged in debates about theology, philosophy, and the nature of man, Marlowe began to cultivate a unique perspective that would later inform his writing. His translations of Ovid's Amores during these years reveal an early fascination with themes of love, desire, and transgression, themes that would become hallmarks of his mature poetry. These exercises in translation were more than mere academic pursuits. They allowed Marlowe to experiment with rhythm, imagery, and tone, laying the groundwork for his original compositions. One cannot discuss Marlowe's early influences without acknowledging the profound impact of Edmund Spenser, whose The Faerie Queene epitomized the grandeur and moral complexity of Elizabethan poetry. While Spenser's work leaned heavily on allegory and Christian symbolism, Marlowe sought to carve out a different path, one that embraced the rawness of human emotion and the ambiguity of moral choices. This divergence from established conventions was evident in his early draft fragments, some of which survive today. These fragments, though incomplete, hint at a poet grappling with questions of identity, purpose, and the fleeting nature of existence. Another significant influence on Marlowe's early development was the vibrant theatrical culture of London. As a playwright, Marlowe understood the power of drama to captivate audiences and provoke thought. This understanding bled into his poetry, imbuing it with a sense of immediacy and theatricality. His ability to craft vivid, larger-than-life characters in verse, a skill honed through his work on stage, became one of his defining traits. For instance, the character of Leander in Hero and Leander emerges not just as a figure of myth, but as a fully realized individual whose passions and vulnerabilities resonate deeply with readers. Yet, for Emmis, the most transformative influence on Marlowe's early poetry was his own life, a tapestry woven with moments of triumph, peril, and mystery. Accounts suggest that Marlowe's involvement in espionage activities exposed him to a wide array of human experiences, from political intrigue to existential dread. These encounters enriched his poetry, infusing it with a sense of urgency and a preoccupation with themes of power, betrayal, and mortality. Even the rumors surrounding his alleged atheism, an accusation that haunted him throughout his life, seemed to have seeped into his verses, lending them a subversive edge that challenged the orthodoxy of his time. It is within this confluence of personal experience, intellectual rigor, and cultural dynamism that Marlowe's early poems took shape. Works like The Passionate Shepherd to his love and The Unfinished Hero and Leander stand as testaments to his evolving style and thematic concerns. In The Passionate Shepherd, Marlowe employs pastoral imagery to explore the tension between idealized romance and the harsh realities of life. while Hero and Leander delves into the complexities of desire and fate. Both poems showcase Marlowe's mastery of language and his ability to weave together disparate elements, classical allusions, sensuous detail, and philosophical inquiry, into cohesive, emotionally resonant wholes. As Marlowe continued to refine his craft, his poems began to attract attention beyond academic circles. They circulated among friends, patrons, and fellow writers, earning him a reputation as a rising star in the literary firmament. Though he may not have set out to revolutionize poetry, Marlowe's early works laid the foundation for what would become a lasting legacy. His willingness to push boundaries, both stylistically and thematically, set him apart from his contemporaries and paved the way for future innovations in English literature. In the chapters that follow, we will trace the trajectory of Marlowe's poetic evolution, examining how his early inspirations coalesced into a body of work that continues to captivate and challenge readers centuries later. From the nascent stirrings of creativity to the polished brilliance of his later compositions, Marlowe's journey serves as a reminder of the transformative power of art and the enduring allure of the written word. Christopher Marlowe's poems are not merely collections of elegant verses. They are intricate tapestries interwoven with recurring themes that reflect the complexities of the human experience. Among these, the pursuit of power, the intoxication of forbidden desires, and the specter of mortality loom largest, forming the backbone of his poetic vision. These themes are not static but evolve across his works, revealing Marlowe's deepening engagement with the philosophical and existential questions of his time. At the heart of many of Marlowe's poems lies an exploration of power, its allure, its corrupting influence, and its ultimate fragility. Nowhere is this more evident than in Hero and Leander, where the titular characters navigate a world shaped by social hierarchies and divine authority. Hero, a priestess of Venus, embodies a paradoxical form of power. Her devotion to chastity grants her spiritual authority, yet it also renders her vulnerable to the whims of the gods and the passions of mortals. Leander, meanwhile, represents the audacity of human ambition, willing to risk everything, including his life, to claim the object of his desire. Their tragic end underscores the futility of attempting to defy the natural order, a theme that resonates deeply with Marlowe's broader skepticism about the limits of human agency. Forbidden desires, too, occupy a central place in Marlowe's poetic universe. His treatment of love and lust is neither romanticized nor condemned outright. Instead, he presents these emotions as forces that transcend rational control, often leading individuals into morally ambiguous territory. In The Passionate Shepherd to His Love, the shepherd's entreaties to his beloved are suffused with promises of idyllic pleasures, yet beneath the surface lies an awareness of the impermanence of such fantasies. The poem's companion piece, Sir Walter Raleigh's The Nymph's Reply to the Shepherd, highlights this tension, suggesting that the shepherd's vision of eternal bliss is ultimately untenable. Marlowe's portrayal of desire thus becomes a meditation on the transient nature of happiness and the inevitable disillusionment that accompanies the pursuit of perfection. Mortality, perhaps the most pervasive theme in Marlowe's poetry, casts a long shadow over his works, whether through the tragic deaths of his protagonists or the contemplation of life's brevity. Marlowe repeatedly confronts the inevitability of death. In Hero and Leander, the lover's demise serves as a poignant reminder of humanity's vulnerability in the face of cosmic indifference. Similarly, in the passionate shepherd to his love. The fleeting nature of springtime and the inevitable decay of material possessions underscore the ephemeral quality of human existence. Marlowe's preoccupation with mortality reflects not only the anxieties of his age, a time when plague and war were constant threats, but also his own philosophical musings on the meaning of life. These themes interact dynamically within Marlowe's poems, creating a richly layered narrative that invites multiple interpretations. For instance, the pursuit of power in Hero and Leander is inextricably linked to the characters' desires, which in turn are shaped by their awareness of mortality. Leander's determination to reach Hero, despite the dangers posed by the Hellespont, can be read as both an act of defiance against the limitations imposed by nature, and a desperate attempt to seize joy before it slips away. Likewise, Hero's internal conflict between her vows of chastity and her growing affection for Leander mirrors the tension between societal expectations and individual yearnings, a tension that Marlowe explores with remarkable nuance. What sets Marlowe apart from his contemporaries is his refusal to offer easy resolutions to these thematic dilemmas. Instead, he embraces ambiguity, allowing his readers to grapple with the contradictions inherent in the human condition. His depictions of power, desire, and mortality are neither wholly celebratory nor entirely condemnatory. Rather, they exist in a liminal space where beauty and tragedy coexist. This duality is particularly evident in Hero and Leander, where the lush sensuality of the lovers' encounters contrasts sharply with the stark finality of their deaths. By juxtaposing these extremes, Marlowe forces his audience to confront uncomfortable truths about the precarious balance between aspiration and destruction. Moreover, Marlowe's thematic explorations are deeply intertwined with his use of classical mythology and Renaissance humanism. His frequent allusions to Greek and Roman legends serve not merely as ornamental devices but as lenses through which he examines universal concerns. The mythological framework of Hero and Leander, for example, allows Marlowe to probe the intersections of divine will and human action, raising questions about free will and determinism that remain relevant even today. At the same time, his embrace of humanist ideals, particularly the belief in the dignity and potential of the individual, imbues his poems with a sense of optimism that tempers their darker undertones. As we move forward in our exploration of Marlowe's poetic legacy, it becomes clear that his thematic preoccupations are not confined to the pages of his works. They reverberate through the corridors of literary history, influencing generations of poets and playwrights who have sought to capture the essence of the human spirit. From John Donne's metaphysical meditations to Percy Bysshe Shelley's romantic odes, echoes of Marlowe's themes can be heard, attesting to the enduring relevance of his insights. In sum, the recurring motifs of power, forbidden desires, and mortality in Christopher Marlowe's poems form a complex web of meaning that continues to captivate and challenge readers. Through his masterful blending of classical tradition and Renaissance innovation, Marlowe crafted a body of work that transcends its historical context, offering timeless reflections on the joys and sorrows of the human experience. As we delve deeper into the intricacies of his poetic vision, we gain not only a greater appreciation for his artistry but also a deeper understanding of ourselves. Christopher Marlowe's poetic genius is perhaps most vividly realized in his revolutionary use of language, structure, and imagery. His verses are not merely vehicles for storytelling but intricate constructions designed to evoke visceral responses and intellectual engagement. Central to this achievement is his pioneering adoption of blank verse, a form that would come to define the dramatic and poetic landscapes of English literature. Unlike the rigid rhyming couplets and structured meters that dominated earlier works, Marlowe's blank verse introduced a rhythmic fluidity that mirrored the cadences of natural speech. This innovation liberated poetry from artificial constraints, enabling him to craft lines that felt both spontaneous and meticulously composed. In Hero and Leander, Marlowe's mastery of blank verse is on full display. The opening lines, "On Hellespont, guilty of true love's blood, in view and opposite two cities stood," immediately establish a tone of grandeur and immediacy. The absence of rhyme does not diminish the music of the verse. Rather, it amplifies the emotional resonance of the imagery. Each line flows seamlessly into the next, creating a sense of continuity that draws the reader into the mythological world Marlowe constructs. The iambic pentameter, with its alternating unstressed and stressed syllables, provides a steady pulse that mirrors the ebb and flow of human emotion. This structural choice allows Marlowe to sustain extended passages of vivid description and intense dialogue without sacrificing clarity or momentum. Imagery, too, plays a pivotal role in Marlowe's poetic technique. He possessed an extraordinary ability to conjure sensory details that transport readers to the scenes he describes. In Hero and Leander, the depiction of the lovers' first meeting is a masterclass in visual and tactile richness. Marlowe writes, "His dangling tresses, that were never shorn, had they been cut, and unto Colchos borne, would have allured the venturous youth of Greece." Here, the image of Leander's flowing hair is not merely descriptive but symbolic, evoking notions of beauty, freedom, and untamed passion. Such imagery operates on multiple levels, appealing simultaneously to the senses and the intellect. Marlowe's use of metaphor and simile further enhances the depth and complexity of his work. In The Passionate Shepherd to His Love, the shepherd's promises are laden with pastoral metaphors that elevate the mundane to the sublime. Lines such as "And we will sit upon the rocks, seeing the shepherds feed their flocks," transform simple acts into moments of transcendent beauty. Yet, these metaphors are not gratuitous embellishments. They serve to reinforce the poem's central themes of idealized love and the fragility of earthly pleasures. Marlowe's metaphors are carefully chosen to resonate with the emotional and philosophical undercurrents of his narratives, ensuring that every word carries weight and significance. Symbolism, another hallmark of Marlowe's style, adds layers of meaning to his poems. In Hero and Leander, the Hellespont itself becomes a potent symbol of the boundary between worlds: physical, emotional, and metaphysical. Its treacherous waters represent the risks inherent in pursuing forbidden desires, while its vast expanse underscores the insignificance of human endeavors in the face of cosmic forces. Similarly, the lamp that guides Leander across the strait functions as a beacon of hope and faith, yet its eventual extinguishment foreshadows the lover's tragic fate. Through such symbols, Marlowe imbues his works with a universality that transcends their specific contexts, inviting readers to find personal relevance in the stories he tells. Equally noteworthy is Marlowe's manipulation of syntax and diction to heighten dramatic effect. His sentences often stretch across multiple lines, defying conventional grammatical structures to create a sense of urgency and unpredictability. This technique is particularly effective in conveying the tumultuous emotions of his characters. Consider, for instance, the climactic moment in Hero and Leander when Leander struggles against the currents. "Then might you see the striving ocean toss, with mountains reared above the watery plain." The inverted syntax, "then might you see," and the deliberate repetition of sounds, "mountains reared," watery plain, generate a palpable tension that mirrors the physical and emotional turmoil of the scene. Marlowe's linguistic innovations extend beyond individual poems to influence the broader trajectory of English poetry. His use of blank verse, in particular, paved the way for later dramatists and poets, including William Shakespeare, who adopted and refined the form in his plays and sonnets. Marlowe's emphasis on naturalistic dialogue and vivid imagery also anticipated the Romantic movement, which would champion spontaneity and emotional authenticity centuries later. By breaking away from the formal strictures of medieval poetics, Marlowe helped usher in a new era of expressive freedom that continues to shape the literary canon. Ultimately, Marlowe's technical achievements are inseparable from the thematic concerns that animate his poetry. His command of language, structure, and imagery enables him to explore complex ideas with precision and elegance, creating works that are at once intellectually stimulating and emotionally compelling. Through his meticulous craftsmanship, Marlowe ensures that his poems resonate not only with the immediate pleasures of sound and sense, but also with the enduring questions of human existence. As we continue to examine the nuances of his artistry, it becomes increasingly apparent that Marlowe's contributions to English poetry are nothing short of transformative. Christopher Marlowe's impact on English literature extends far beyond the confines of his own lifetime, casting a long and indelible shadow over the works of subsequent poets and playwrights. His innovative use of language, his daring exploration of complex themes, and his unflinching portrayal of human ambition and frailty have served as a wellspring of inspiration for generations of writers. Among those who owe a profound debt to Marlowe, none stands out more prominently than William Shakespeare, whose plays and sonnets bear unmistakable traces of Marlowe's influence. Shakespeare's debt to Marlowe is perhaps most evident in his adoption of blank verse, a form that Marlowe had perfected in his dramatic and poetic works. While earlier Elizabethan playwrights relied heavily on rhymed couplets and prose, Marlowe's use of unrhymed iambic pentameter introduced a new level of rhythmic sophistication and emotional depth to English drama. Shakespeare embraced this innovation, employing blank verse as the primary vehicle for his characters' soliloquies and dialogues. The result is a seamless blend of natural speech patterns and elevated poetic expression, a hallmark of Shakespearean drama. Consider, for instance, the famous "to be, or not to be" soliloquy in Hamlet, where the fluidity of blank verse mirrors the protagonist's introspective musings. The influence of Marlowe's technique is unmistakable, as Shakespeare builds upon the foundation laid by his predecessor to create some of the most iconic passages in English literature. Beyond his technical innovations, Marlowe's thematic preoccupations also left an indelible mark on Shakespeare's work. The exploration of power, ambition, and moral ambiguity that defines Marlowe's plays and poems resonates deeply in Shakespeare's tragedies and histories. Characters like Macbeth, Richard III, and Julius Caesar embody the same relentless pursuit of power that drives Marlowe's protagonists, such as Tamburlaine and Dr. Faustus. Similarly, the tension between desire and consequence, a recurring motif in Marlowe's poetry, is echoed in Shakespeare's treatment of love and lust. Whether in the tragic romance of Romeo and Juliet, or the darker undercurrents of Othello, Marlowe's willingness to confront the darker aspects of human nature provided Shakespeare with a template for exploring the complexities of the human psyche. The influence of Marlowe's poetry, however, extends beyond Shakespeare to encompass a broader spectrum of English literary tradition. John Donne, the preeminent figure of the metaphysical poets, drew inspiration from Marlowe's bold experimentation with language and form. John's use of extended metaphors and intricate conceits owes much to Marlowe's ability to fuse intellectual rigor with emotional intensity. In poems like The Flea and A Valediction, Forbidding Mourning, John adopts a similarly audacious approach to subject matter, tackling themes of love, spirituality, and mortality with a combination of wit and profundity that recalls Marlowe's style. Similarly, the Romantic poets of the late 18th and early 19th centuries found in Marlowe a kindred spirit whose celebration of individual passion and rebellion against societal constraints aligned with their own artistic philosophies. Percy Bysshe Shelley, in particular, admired Marlowe's commitment to pushing the boundaries of poetic expression. Shelley's Ode to a Skylark reflects Marlowe's penchant for elevating the ordinary to the extraordinary, transforming the bird's song into a symbol of transcendent beauty and freedom. Likewise, Lord Byron's dramatic monologues and narrative poems often echo Marlowe's fascination with larger-than-life characters and their struggles against fate. Even in the modern era, Marlowe's legacy continues to resonate. T.S. Eliot, in his seminal essay The Metaphysical Poets, praised Marlowe's ability to unify thought and feeling, a quality he believed was essential to great poetry. Eliot's own fragmented and elusive style, exemplified in The Wasteland, can be seen as a continuation of Marlowe's efforts to capture the multiplicity of human experience. Similarly, contemporary poets like Sylvia Plath and Ted Hughes have drawn on Marlowe's exploration of existential themes, using his work as a touchstone for their own investigations into the nature of identity and mortality. Marlowe's influence is not limited to poetry alone. His impact on the development of English drama is equally profound. Playwrights such as Ben Jonson and John Webster built upon the foundation he established, incorporating elements of his dramatic structure and character development into their own works. Jonson's satirical comedies, for instance, often feature characters whose intellectual and moral complexities recall Marlowe's protagonists, while Webster's tragedies exhibit a similar fascination with the darker aspects of human nature. Perhaps the most enduring aspect of Marlowe's legacy is his role as a catalyst for artistic innovation. By challenging the conventions of his time and pushing the boundaries of what poetry and drama could achieve, Marlowe created a space for future writers to experiment and evolve. His willingness to confront controversial subjects, his mastery of language, and his unrelenting pursuit of truth continue to inspire those who seek to capture the essence of the human condition in their work. In sum, Christopher Marlowe's contributions to English literature are both foundational and transformative. His influence can be traced across centuries, genres, and movements, serving as a testament to the enduring power of his vision. As we reflect on his legacy, it becomes clear that Marlowe's poetry is not merely a product of its time, but a timeless force that continues to shape the literary landscape. Through the voices of those who followed in his footsteps, Marlowe's spirit lives on, reminding us of the infinite possibilities of the written word. Among Christopher Marlowe's poetic corpus, Hero and Leander stands as both a crowning achievement and a poignant fragment, a work whose brilliance is matched only by the sorrow of its incompleteness. This epic poem, based on the ancient Greek myth of the ill-fated lovers Hero and Leander, showcases Marlowe's unparalleled ability to weave sensuality, wit, and philosophical depth into a single narrative. Yet, its unfinished state has left readers and scholars grappling with questions of intent, interpretation, and the tantalizing possibilities of what might have been. The story of Hero and Leander is steeped in the timeless themes of love, desire, and destiny. Hero, a chaste priestess of Aphrodite, resides in a tower overlooking the Hellespont, while Leander, a young man from Abydos, falls deeply in love with her after catching a glimpse of her beauty. Despite the obstacles posed by geography, societal expectations, and divine intervention, the two embark on a passionate affair, with Leander swimming nightly across the treacherous strait to be with his beloved. Tragedy strikes when a storm extinguishes the guiding light of Hero's lamp, causing Leander to drown in the raging waters. Overcome with grief, Hero leaps from her tower to join him in death, their love immortalized in its very destruction. Marlowe's rendition of this myth is distinguished by its lush sensuality and intellectual sophistication. From the opening lines, he immerses the reader in a world of vivid imagery and heightened emotion. The description of Hero's beauty, for instance, is rendered with a painterly precision that captures both her physical allure and her ethereal grace. Her kirtle blue, whereon was many a stain, made with the blood of wretched lovers, slain. Such details not only evoke the visual splendor of the scene but also hint at the darker undercurrents of the narrative, the cost of forbidden love and the inevitability of loss. Yet, it is Marlowe's treatment of desire that truly sets Hero and Leander apart. Unlike earlier retellings of the myth, which often emphasize its moral implications, Marlowe revels in the physicality of the lovers' relationship. His verses pulse with an erotic energy that is both unabashed and deeply human. Consider the playful banter between Hero and Leander during their first encounter, where Leander's bold advances are met with Hero's coy resistance. Marlowe captures the delicate dance of attraction and hesitation with a deftness that feels startlingly modern. Lines such as "Who taught thee rhetoric to deceive a maid, and for though no law, divine or human, binds unmarried minds, yet there are subtle strings," highlight the tension between societal norms and individual desires, a theme that resonates profoundly with Marlowe's own era and beyond. The poem's humor, too, is a testament to Marlowe's versatility as a poet. Amidst the grandeur of myth and the intensity of passion, he injects moments of levity that underscore the absurdity of human behavior. The scene in which Neptune mistakes Leander for Ganymede, the god's youthful lover, is a case in point. Marlowe's depiction of the sea god's amorous advances is both comical and poignant, illustrating the capriciousness of divine intervention while also highlighting the vulnerability of mortals caught in the crossfire of celestial whims. Such moments of wit serve not as distractions but as counterpoints to the overarching tragedy, enriching the emotional texture of the narrative. Despite its undeniable brilliance, Hero and Leander remains incomplete, breaking off abruptly midway through the second sestiad. Scholars speculate that Marlowe's untimely death in 1593 may have interrupted his work, leaving behind a masterpiece forever suspended in mid-air. The abrupt ending has sparked endless debate about Marlowe's intentions. Some argue that the fragmentary nature of the poem reflects the inherent instability of love itself, a union perpetually on the brink of dissolution. Others suggest that Marlowe deliberately left certain elements unresolved, inviting readers to engage actively with the text and draw their own conclusions. Regardless of its incomplete status, Hero and Leander has exerted a profound influence on English literature. George Chapman, who completed the poem posthumously, expanded upon Marlowe's vision, albeit with a markedly different tone and style. While Chapman's editions provide a sense of closure, they lack the sensuous immediacy and intellectual complexity that characterize Marlowe's original verses. This contrast underscores the irreplaceable quality of Marlowe's voice and the unique contribution he made to the poetic tradition. In analyzing Hero and Leander, critics have often noted its dual function as both a celebration and a critique of love. On one level, the poem extols the transformative power of passion, portraying Hero and Leander's relationship as a testament to the heights of human emotion. On another, it exposes the fragility of such connections, reminding readers of the forces, both internal and external, that conspire to tear lovers apart. This duality reflects Marlowe's broader philosophical concerns, particularly his fascination with the interplay between aspiration and limitation. Ultimately, Hero and Leander stands as a testament to Marlowe's artistic vision, a vision that transcends the boundaries of genre, time, and convention. Its sensuality, humor, and philosophical depth combine to create a work that is at once intimate and universal, personal and timeless. As we continue to explore the nuances of Marlowe's poetry, this unfinished masterpiece serves as a reminder of the enduring power of art to capture the complexities of the human experience. Christopher Marlowe's poetry did not emerge in isolation but was profoundly shaped by the dynamic and often turbulent socio-political climate of Elizabethan England. To understand the deeper currents that run through his verses, one must consider the broader historical context in which he lived and wrote, a period marked by religious upheaval, political intrigue, and shifting cultural paradigms. These forces not only influenced Marlowe's personal experiences but also informed the thematic and ideological underpinnings of his work, embedding his poetry with layers of meaning that resonate across centuries. At the heart of Marlowe's era was the reign of Queen Elizabeth I, a monarch whose leadership transformed England into a burgeoning power on the global stage. Her ascension to the throne in 1558 signaled the beginning of the Elizabethan Golden Age, a time of unprecedented cultural flourishing. However, this prosperity was accompanied by significant challenges, chief among them, the ongoing tensions between Catholicism and Protestantism. The English Reformation, initiated by Henry VIII, had fractured the nation's religious unity, and Elizabeth's moderate Anglicanism sought to strike a delicate balance between competing factions. Yet, this compromise was far from universally accepted. Catholic plots, such as the infamous Babington conspiracy aimed at assassinating Elizabeth and installing Mary, Queen of Scots, as a Catholic ruler, underscored the volatile nature of the political landscape. Marlowe's own life intersected with these tensions in ways that deeply affected his worldview and, consequently, his poetry. Allegations of atheism, a charge that carried severe penalties in an era defined by religious orthodoxy, dogged him throughout his career. Accusations of holding damnable opinions stemmed from his reputed denial of traditional Christian doctrines, reflecting a skepticism that likely arose from his exposure to diverse intellectual traditions during his time at Cambridge. While there is no definitive evidence to confirm these claims, the persistent rumors suggest that Marlowe inhabited a gray area between belief and doubt, a tension that surfaces in his poetic exploration of mortality, divinity, and human agency. The political machinations of Elizabethan England also cast a long shadow over Marlowe's life and work. Espionage was a ubiquitous feature of the period, with intelligence networks operating both domestically and abroad to safeguard the realm's interests. Marlowe's alleged involvement in covert activities for the crown adds another layer of complexity to his biography. Historical records indicate that he may have been recruited by Sir Francis Walsingham, Elizabeth's spymaster, to gather information on Catholic conspiracies. If true, this dual role, as poet and spy would have afforded Marlowe unique insights into the darker recesses of power and corruption. Insights that manifest in his portrayal of ambitious rulers and moral ambiguities in works like Tamburlaine, the Great and Dr. Faustus. Cultural shifts during the Elizabethan era further enriched the soil in which Marlowe's poetic genius took root. The Renaissance, with its revival of classical learning and emphasis on human potential, fostered an environment conducive to artistic innovation. Marlowe's education at Corpus Christi College immersed him in the works of ancient Greek and Roman authors, whose influence permeates his poetry. The pastoral tradition, exemplified by Virgil's eclogues, informs the passionate shepherd to his love, while the mythological narratives of Ovid and others shape the framework of Hero and Leander. Moreover, the burgeoning theatre culture of London provided Marlowe with a platform to experiment with dramatic forms and engage with audiences hungry for new modes of storytelling. Social hierarchies and class distinctions also played a significant role in shaping Marlowe's perspectives and creative output. Born into a modest family, Marlowe's rise to prominence within elite academic and literary circles speaks to the fluidity of social mobility during the period. Yet, his background likely sensitized him to the inequalities and injustices faced by those outside the aristocratic elite. This awareness surfaces in his poetry through critiques of power and privilege, as seen in the hubris of Tamburlaine or the tragic downfall of Faustus. By giving voice to marginalized figures and interrogating established hierarchies, Marlowe challenged the status quo, earning both admiration and censure from his contemporaries. Finally, the specter of mortality loomed large over Elizabethan society, shaped by the omnipresent threat of disease, war, and execution. Outbreaks of plague periodically decimated populations, while military conflicts, such as the Anglo-Spanish War, claimed countless lives. Against this backdrop of uncertainty, Marlowe's preoccupation with death takes on added poignancy. In Hero and Leander, the lover's doomed fate serves as a microcosm of the fragility of human existence, while the passionate shepherd to his love grapples with the impermanence of earthly pleasures. These themes resonate deeply with the existential anxieties of Marlowe's time, offering readers a mirror in which to confront their own fears and aspirations. In sum, the historical, political, and social milieu of Elizabethan England provided both the canvas and the colors with which Marlowe painted his poetic masterpieces. The religious controversies, political intrigues, and cultural transformations of his era infused his work with a richness and complexity that continue to captivate scholars and readers alike. By situating Marlowe's poetry within this broader context, we gain a deeper appreciation for the ways in which his art reflects and refracts the world in which he lived, a world as fraught with contradictions as it was ripe with possibility. The study of Christopher Marlowe's poetry has spawned a rich and multifaceted body of scholarly discourse, reflecting the enduring fascination his works hold for academics and enthusiasts alike. Over centuries, critics and researchers have approached Marlowe's verses from myriad angles, each contributing to a mosaic of interpretations that deepen our understanding of his artistry. From formalist analyses of his technical innovations to psychoanalytic readings of his thematic concerns, the critical reception of Marlowe's poetry reveals not only the diversity of scholarly perspectives, but also the adaptability of his work to changing intellectual paradigms. One of the earliest waves of critical engagement with Marlowe focused on his formal achievements, particularly his pioneering use of blank verse. Scholars of the 19th and early 20th centuries, such as Algernon Charles Swinburne and T.S. Eliot, lauded Marlowe's rhythmic mastery and its transformative impact on English poetry. Swinburne, in his essay A Study of Ben Jonson, described Marlowe's blank verse as the first great floodgate of English poetic utterance, emphasizing its role in liberating English drama and poetry from the constraints of rhymed couplets. Eliot, in his seminal essay The Metaphysical Poets, highlighted Marlowe's ability to unify thought and feeling through language, arguing that his verses achieved a rare synthesis of intellect and emotion. These early assessments laid the groundwork for subsequent studies that sought to unpack the structural and stylistic elements of Marlowe's poetry, cementing his reputation as a technical innovator. Parallel to these formalist inquiries were thematic analyses that probed the philosophical and existential dimensions of Marlowe's work. Critics like Harry Levin and Wilbur Sanders explored how Marlowe's poetry grapples with questions of power, desire, and mortality, framing his oeuvre within the broader intellectual currents of the Renaissance. Levin's Christopher Marlowe, The Overreacher, 1952, remains a landmark study, positing that Marlowe's protagonists, whether Leander, Faust, or Tamburlaine, are united by their relentless pursuit of transcendence and their ultimate confrontation with human limitations. Sanders, in The Dramatist and the Received Idea, 1968, and The Received Idea, 1968, expanded on this idea, arguing that Marlowe's works consistently challenge orthodox beliefs and societal norms, reflecting his own skeptical outlook on religion and authority. These interpretations have proven influential, shaping how later scholars conceptualize the ideological underpinnings of Marlowe's poetry. The mid-20th century witnessed a shift towards psychoanalytic and biographical approaches, as critics began to explore the intersection of Marlowe's life and work. Writers such as Clifford Leach and Roma Gill examined how Marlowe's alleged atheism, rumored espionage activities, and untimely death might have influenced his poetic vision. Leach's Marlowe and the Early Shakespeare, 1962, proposed that Marlowe's preoccupation with themes of transgression and mortality stemmed from his marginal position within Elizabethan society, while Gill's Christopher Marlowe, A Literary Life, 1987, delved into the biographical details of his life, suggesting that his personal struggles and existential uncertainties found expression in the tragic fates of his characters. These psychoanalytic readings often emphasize the tension between Marlowe's inner world and the external pressures of his socio-political environment, offering a more intimate lens through which to view his poetry. In the latter half of the 20th century, feminist and post-colonial critiques emerged as significant forces in Marlowe's scholarship, challenging traditional interpretations and broadening the scope of inquiry. Feminist scholars like Lisa Jardine and Dimtama Callahan re-examined Marlowe's portrayal of gender and power dynamics, particularly in works like Hero and Leander. Jardine's still harping on daughters, Women and Drama in the Age of Shakespeare, 1983, critiqued the ways in which Marlowe's female characters are often confined by patriarchal structures, yet she also acknowledged moments of subversion within his texts. Callahan, in Woman and Gender in Renaissance Tragedy, 1989, argued that Hero's agency, though constrained by her role as a priestess, is not entirely erased, pointing to subtle acts of resistance that complicate her characterization. These feminist readings have enriched our understanding of Marlowe's engagement with gender, revealing layers of complexity previously overlooked. Post-colonial critics, meanwhile, have focused on Marlowe's treatment of empire, conquest, and cultural identity, particularly in his dramatic works but also resonating in his poetry. Ania Lumba's Colonialism, Post-Colonialism, 1998, analyzed how Marlowe's depictions of figures like Tamberlane reflect anxieties about colonial expansion and the othering of non-European culture. While Lumba's work primarily centers on Marlowe's plays, her insights extend to his poetic treatment of mythological and historical narratives, where themes of domination and resistance are similarly at play. Such analyses situate Marlowe within the broader context of early modern globalization, highlighting the ways in which his poetry engages with the era's imperial ambitions and cross-cultural encounters. More recently, eco-critical approaches have begun to shed light on Marlowe's representation of nature and the environment. Critics such as Gabriel Egan and Robert Watson have explored how Marlowe's pastoral imagery and mythological settings intersect with Renaissance conceptions of the natural world. Egan's Green Shakespeare, From Ecopolitics to Eco-Criticism, 2006, examines the ecological implications of Marlowe's use of landscape in The Passionate Shepherd to His Love, arguing that the poem both idealizes and critiques humanity's relationship with nature. Watson, in Back to Nature, The Green and the Real in the Late Renaissance, 2006, extends this line of inquiry, suggesting that Marlowe's depiction of the Hellespont in Hero and Leander reflects an awareness of the sea's dual role as a source of beauty and peril, a microcosm of humanity's fraught interactions with the environment. Despite the wealth of scholarly attention devoted to Marlowe's poetry, debates persist regarding key aspects of his work. One enduring controversy centers on the authorship question, fueled by Marlowe's mysterious death and the fragmentary nature of some of his texts. While most scholars accept Marlowe as the sole author of his surviving works, fringe theories proposing alternative authorship or collaborative efforts continue to circulate. These debates, though largely speculative, underscore the enigmatic allure of Marlowe's legacy and the challenges posed by incomplete or contested evidence. Another point of contention lies in the interpretation of Marlowe's alleged atheism and its influence on his poetry. Some critics argue that his skeptical views are subtly encoded within his verses, while others caution against reading his works as direct reflections of his personal beliefs. This debate is further complicated by the lack of definitive biographical records, leaving room for multiple and often conflicting interpretations. Scholars like David Riggs, In the World of Christopher Marlowe, 2004, advocate for a nuanced approach that considers both textual evidence and historical context, resisting reductive conclusions about Marlowe's ideological commitments. Finally, the unfinished state of Hero and Leander continues to provoke discussion among scholars. Was its incompleteness a result of Marlowe's untimely death, or did he deliberately leave it open-ended? George Chapman's completion of the poem has sparked debates about artistic intent and the ethics of posthumous interventions. Critics like Patrick Cheney, in Marlowe's Counterfeit Profession, 1997, argue that Chapman's additions alter the tone and thematic focus of the original, raising questions about the integrity of collaborative literary enterprises. These discussions highlight the interpretive challenges posed by fragmented texts and the enduring quest to reconcile Marlowe's vision with the realities of textual transmission. In sum, the critical reception of Christopher Marlowe's poetry reflects the richness and diversity of scholarly inquiry over centuries. From formalist analyses to feminist critiques, from psychoanalytic explorations to eco-critical perspectives, each wave of scholarship has added new dimensions to our understanding of his work. Yet, The debates and controversies surrounding Marlowe's poetry ensure that it remains a fertile ground for intellectual exploration, inviting readers and researchers alike to engage with its complexities and contradictions. As we move forward, these ongoing dialogues will undoubtedly shape and reshape the legacy of one of English literature's most enigmatic figures. Christopher Marlowe's poetry, though born in the Elizabethan era, possesses a timeless quality that transcends its historical origins. Its enduring relevance can be attributed to the universal themes it explores. Themes that resonate deeply with contemporary audiences and continue to inspire creative reinterpretations across various media. From theater and film to visual arts and music, Marlowe's influence permeates modern culture, ensuring that his voice remains alive and vibrant in the collective imagination. One of the most striking examples of Marlowe's modern resonance is the frequent adaptation of his works for the stage and screen. In recent decades, productions of Dr. Faustus and Tamburlaine the Great have been reimagined to reflect contemporary concerns, blending Marlowe's original text with innovative staging techniques and updated settings. For instance, Rupert Gould's 2016 production of Dr. Faustus at the Almeida Theatre in London transported the story into a sleek, corporate dystopia, drawing parallels between Faustus's thirst for knowledge and the ethical dilemmas posed by technological advancement. Similarly, the 2012 film Tamburlaine Must Die, directed by Ross Williams, reinterpreted Marlowe's life and work through a fictionalized account of his final days, weaving together elements of espionage, betrayal, and artistic ambition. These adaptations demonstrate how Marlowe's exploration of human ambition and moral compromise speaks to the anxieties of our own age, bridging the gap between past and present. Beyond theater and film, Marlowe's poetry has inspired a wide array of artistic expressions. Visual artists have long been drawn to the vivid imagery and emotional intensity of his verses, using them as a springboard for their own creative endeavors. The Pre-Raphaelite Brotherhood, for example, frequently turned to Marlowe's Hero and Leander for inspiration, producing paintings that capture the sensuality and tragedy of the lover's tale. Dante Gabriel Rossetti's Hero and Leander, 1850, exemplifies this trend, depicting the iconic moment when Leander plunges into the Hellespont, his body illuminated against the dark waters. More recently, contemporary artists like Tracey Emin have cited Marlowe as an influence, crediting his unflinching portrayal of desire and vulnerability with shaping their approach to themes of love and loss. Music, too, has embraced Marlowe's poetic legacy, with composers and musicians finding fertile ground for experimentation in his verses. Benjamin Britten's operatic adaptation of The Rape of Lucretia, 1946, while not directly based on Marlowe's work, draws heavily on the same classical sources that inspired him, echoing his fascination with mythological narratives and their psychological depth. In popular music, references to Marlowe abound, from Bob Dylan's allusions to Dr. Faustus in his lyrics to Nick Cave's haunting rendition of The Passionate Shepherd, to his Love. These musical interpretations underscore the adaptability of Marlowe's poetry, proving that its emotional power and philosophical depth can be translated into diverse sonic landscapes. Perhaps the most profound testament to Marlowe's lasting impact lies in the way his themes continue to resonate with modern audiences. His exploration of forbidden desires, the corrupting influence of power, and the inevitability of mortality mirrors many of the existential questions faced by individuals today. In an era defined by rapid technological change and shifting social norms, Marlowe's insistence on confronting uncomfortable truths feels more urgent than ever. His portrayal of characters who grapple with the limits of human agency, whether it be Faustus bargaining with Mephistopheles, or Leander defying the Hellespont, serves as a reminder of the timeless struggle to reconcile aspiration with reality. Moreover, Marlowe's skepticism toward authority and his willingness to challenge established hierarchies align closely with contemporary movements advocating for social justice and equality. His critique of religious dogma and political corruption finds echoes in modern activism, where calls for transparency and accountability dominate public discourse. By interrogating the structures of power and privilege, Marlowe's poetry provides a framework for understanding the systemic inequities that persist in society, encouraging readers to question the status quo and imagine alternative possibilities. In addition to its thematic relevance, Marlowe's linguistic innovation continues to shape the evolution of English literature and language. His mastery of blank verse, with its rhythmic fluidity and emotional immediacy, paved the way for later poets and playwrights to experiment with form and structure. Writers like T. Eliot, Sylvia Plath, and Derek Walcott have acknowledged Marlowe's influence on their own work, citing his ability to fuse intellectual rigor with visceral emotion as a model for their craft. This legacy ensures that Marlowe's contribution to the English poetic tradition remains foundational, even as new voices emerge to push the boundaries of what poetry can achieve. Ultimately, the enduring relevance of Marlowe's poetry lies in its capacity to transcend time and place, speaking to the shared experiences and aspirations of humanity. Whether through adaptations that reimagine his stories for new contexts or artistic works that draw inspiration from his imagery and themes, Marlowe's presence in modern culture is undeniable. His ability to capture the complexities of the human condition with all its beauty, fragility, and contradiction ensures that his poetry will continue to resonate with future generations, offering solace, provocation, and insight in equal measure. The preservation or lack thereof of Christopher Marlowe's poetic manuscripts presents one of the most intriguing puzzles in literary history. Unlike contemporaries such as William Shakespeare, whose works benefited from relatively systematic publication during his lifetime, much of Marlowe's output survives only in fragments, incomplete drafts, or posthumous editions. This precarious transmission has profoundly influenced how we understand and interpret his poetry, raising questions about authenticity, editorial intervention, and the true extent of his oeuvre. To comprehend the full scope of Marlowe's literary legacy, one must delve into the labyrinthine history of his manuscripts and the challenges they pose for modern scholarship. Few of Marlowe's original handwritten documents remain extant, and those that do exist are often tantalizingly incomplete. The most famous example is the manuscript of Hero and Leander, which breaks off abruptly midway through the Second Sestiad. Housed in the British Library, this fragment offers a rare glimpse into Marlowe's creative process, complete with crossings out, marginal notes, and corrections. Scholars have scrutinized these markings for clues about his working methods, suggesting that the manuscript may represent an intermediate stage of composition rather than a polished final draft. Such insights are invaluable, yet they also underscore the frustrating gaps in our knowledge. Did Marlowe intend to expand the poem further, or was its unfinished state a reflection of his untimely death? Without additional evidence, definitive answers remain elusive. Compounding the issue is the role of posthumous editors in shaping Marlowe's legacy. After his death in 1593, several of his works were published by others, often without clear indication of his involvement in their preparation. Thomas Thorpe's 1600 edition of the first book of Lucan and Edward Blount's inclusion of Hero and Leander in his 1598 collection, England's Helicon, are notable examples. While these publications ensured the survival of Marlowe's poetry, they also introduced potential distortions. Editorial decisions regarding punctuation, spelling, and even content could significantly alter the meaning and tone of the original text. For instance, George Chapman's completion of Hero and Leander, while celebrated in its own right, has been criticized for diverging stylistically from Marlowe's original, raising questions about whether the poem as we know it accurately represents Marlowe's vision. The absence of authoritative manuscripts has also fueled debates over the authenticity of certain works attributed to Marlowe. Texts like The Passionate Shepherd to His Love and The Massacre at Paris appear in various forms, with discrepancies in wording and structure that suggest multiple hands at work. Some scholars argue that these variations reflect Marlowe's tendency to revise his poems repeatedly, while others contend that they may indicate collaboration or unauthorized alterations by printers. The lack of a definitive version complicates efforts to establish a reliable canon, forcing researchers to navigate a thicket of competing claims and conjectures. Modern technology has offered new tools for addressing these challenges, shedding light on aspects of Marlowe's manuscripts that were previously inaccessible. Digital imaging techniques, for example, allow scholars to examine faded ink, watermarks, and other physical features of surviving documents with unprecedented precision. Infrared spectroscopy has revealed hidden annotations and corrections in some manuscripts, providing fresh insights into Marlowe's compositional habits. Additionally, computational methods such as stylometric analysis have been employed to assess the likelihood of Marlowe's authorship of disputed texts, comparing linguistic patterns across his known works and those of his contemporaries. While these advances have yielded valuable information, they also highlight the limitations of relying solely on quantitative data to resolve qualitative questions about authorial intent. The preservation or lack thereof of Marlowe's manuscripts has not only shaped academic discourse but also influenced public perceptions of his poetry. The fragmentary nature of his surviving works lends them an air of mystery and elusiveness, reinforcing Marlowe's image as a tragic genius cut down before his prime. This romanticized narrative, while compelling, risks overshadowing the substance of his contributions to English literature. It is crucial, therefore, to balance appreciation for the enigmatic qualities of Marlowe's manuscripts with rigorous scholarly inquiry into their provenance and significance. Looking ahead, the ongoing discovery of archival materials holds the promise of further illuminating Marlowe's poetic legacy. Recent findings, such as previously unknown letters referencing Marlowe's activities or marginalia in books he is believed to have owned, offer tantalizing hints about his intellectual milieu and creative development. Collaborative projects between libraries, universities, and digital humanities initiatives aim to consolidate these resources, creating comprehensive databases that facilitate comparative analysis and interdisciplinary research. Such efforts exemplify the dynamic interplay between traditional scholarship and cutting-edge technology, ensuring that Marlowe's manuscripts continue to yield new insights for generations to come. In sum, the complex history of Christopher Marlowe's poetic manuscripts underscores the intricate relationship between material culture and literary interpretation. Their partial survival, coupled with the interventions of editors and the advent of modern methodologies, has profoundly shaped how we read and understand his work. By grappling with the uncertainties and ambiguities inherent in these documents, scholars and enthusiasts alike deepen their engagement with Marlowe's artistry, preserving the vitality of his voice amidst the passage of time. Christopher Marlowe's poetic corpus stands as a monumental achievement in English literature, distinguished not only by its technical brilliance, but also by its profound exploration of universal themes. At the heart of his legacy lies a body of work that seamlessly blends linguistic innovation with philosophical depth, creating a tapestry of human experience that transcends the boundaries of time and place. From the lush sensuality of Hero and Leander, to the introspective musings of the passionate shepherd, to his love, Marlowe's poems encapsulate the complexities of desire, power, and mortality, inviting readers to confront the eternal questions that define the human condition. Central to Marlowe's poetic genius is his revolutionary use of blank verse, a form that liberated English poetry from the rigid constraints of rhyme and meter. His mastery of iambic pentameter imbues his verses with a rhythmic fluidity that mirrors the cadences of natural speech, allowing for an unparalleled immediacy of expression. This innovation, first fully realized in Tamburlaine the Great and later refined in his shorter poems, set a new standard for dramatic and lyrical writing. The opening lines of Hero and Leander exemplify this achievement. On Hellespont, guilty of true love's blood, and view, and opposite two cities stood. Here, the absence of rhyme does not diminish the music of the verse. Instead, it amplifies the emotional resonance of the imagery, drawing the reader into a world where beauty and tragedy coexist. Through his manipulation of syntax and diction, Marlowe crafts lines that feel both spontaneous and meticulously composed, achieving a rare synthesis of intellect and emotion. Equally remarkable is Marlowe's ability to evoke vivid sensory details that transport readers to the scenes he describes. His imagery operates on multiple levels, appealing simultaneously to the senses and the intellect. In Hero and Leander, the depiction of the lovers' first meeting is a masterclass in visual and tactile richness. Lines such as his dangling tresses, that were never shorn, had they been cut, and unto Colchos born, would have allured the venturous youth of Greece, transform Leander's flowing hair into a symbol of beauty, freedom, and untamed passion. Such imagery is neither gratuitous nor ornamental. It serves to reinforce the poem's central themes of idealized romance and the fragility of earthly pleasures. Marlowe's metaphors and similes further enhance the depth and complexity of his work, ensuring that every word carries weight and significance. Yet, what truly sets Marlowe apart from his contemporaries is his willingness to embrace ambiguity and contradiction. His poems resist easy resolutions, instead presenting a kaleidoscopic view of the human experience. In The Passionate Shepherd to His Love, the shepherd's promises of idyllic pleasures are undercut by the implicit awareness of their impermanence. Similarly, in Hero and Leander, the lovers' ecstatic union is shadowed by the inevitability of their tragic fate. This duality reflects Marlowe's broader philosophical concerns, particularly his fascination with the interplay between aspiration and limitation. By juxtaposing extremes, beauty and decay, passion and despair, he forces his audience to confront uncomfortable truths about the precarious balance between hope and destruction. Marlowe's thematic preoccupations are deeply intertwined with his use of classical mythology and Renaissance humanism. His frequent allusions to Greek and Roman legends serve not merely as decorative devices but as lenses through which he examines universal concerns. The mythological framework of Hero and Leander, for example, allows Marlowe to probe the intersections of divine will and human action, raising questions about free will and determinism that remain relevant even today. At the same time, his embrace of humanist ideals, particularly the belief in the dignity and potential of the individual, imbues his poems with a sense of optimism that tempers their darker undertones. This fusion of classical tradition and Renaissance innovation underscores Marlowe's unique position as a bridge between past and future, tradition and modernity. The impact of Marlowe's poetry extends far beyond his immediate contemporaries, influencing generations of writers who have sought to capture the essence of the human spirit. From John Donne's metaphysical meditations to Percy Bysshe Shelley's romantic odes, echoes of Marlowe's themes can be heard, attesting to the enduring relevance of his insights. His exploration of power, desire, and mortality has served as a touchstone for poets and playwrights across centuries, inspiring them to push the boundaries of what poetry can achieve. Even in the modern era, Marlowe's legacy continues to resonate, as evidenced by adaptations of his works in theater, film, music, and visual arts. These reinterpretations not only preserve his voice but also ensure that his poetry remains a living force in contemporary culture. Ultimately, Christopher Marlowe's contribution to English poetry is nothing short of transformative. His pioneering adoption of blank verse, his bold experimentation with language and form, and his unflinching portrayal of human ambition and frailty have left an indelible mark on the literary canon. Through his meticulous craftsmanship, Marlowe ensures that his poems resonate not only with the immediate pleasures of sound and sense, but also with the enduring questions of human existence. As we reflect on his legacy, it becomes increasingly apparent that Marlowe's work is not merely a product of its time, but a timeless force that continues to shape the literary landscape. His voice, though silenced prematurely, lives on through the verses he left behind, a testament to the infinite possibilities of the written word. Christopher Marlowe's poetry occupies a singular space in the annals of English literature, serving as both a cornerstone of the Renaissance tradition and a beacon for future generations of writers. His pioneering innovations in form and style, combined with his fearless exploration of universal themes, have cemented his status as a transformative figure whose influence continues to reverberate across centuries. To fully appreciate Marlowe's enduring significance, one must consider not only the immediate impact of his works during the Elizabethan era, but also the ways in which his legacy has evolved and expanded over time, shaping the trajectory of English poetry and drama in profound and lasting ways. At the core of Marlowe's contribution lies his revolutionary use of blank verse, a form that liberated poetry from the constraints of rhymed couplets and rigid meters. By adopting unrhymed iambic pentameter, Marlowe achieved a level of rhythmic sophistication and emotional immediacy that had previously been unattainable. This innovation did not merely redefine the possibilities of poetic expression. It laid the groundwork for the dramatic and lyrical achievements of subsequent writers. William Shakespeare, perhaps the most illustrious beneficiary of Marlowe's breakthrough, adopted blank verse as the primary vehicle for his plays and sonnets, elevating it to new heights of complexity and nuance. The debt Shakespeare owed to Marlowe is evident in works like Hamlet and Macbeth, where the fluidity of blank verse mirrors the psychological depth of the characters. Marlowe's influence, however, extends far beyond Shakespeare, permeating the works of John Milton, whose epic Paradise Lost owes much to Marlowe's mastery of elevated language and grand narrative scope. Beyond his technical achievements, Marlowe's thematic preoccupations have left an indelible imprint on English literature. His relentless interrogation of power, desire, and mortality reflects a deep engagement with the philosophical and existential questions of his time. Yet these concerns transcend their historical context to speak to universal human experiences. The tragic arcs of characters like Tamberlan and Dr. Faustus exemplify the hubris and vulnerability inherent in the pursuit of greatness, while the doomed love of Hero and Leander underscores the fragility of human connection in the face of cosmic indifference. These themes resonate powerfully in later works, from John Donne's metaphysical explorations of love and spirituality, to the romantic odes of Percy Bysshe Shelley, which celebrate the sublime beauty of nature and the boundless potential of the human spirit. Marlowe's ability to capture the complexities of the human condition, its joys, sorrows, triumphs, and failures ensures that his poetry remains a vital touchstone for writers seeking to articulate the ineffable. The adaptability of Marlowe's work to changing intellectual paradigms further underscores his enduring relevance. Feminist and post-colonial critiques, for example, have re-examined his portrayals of gender, empire, and cultural identity, revealing layers of complexity previously overlooked. Feminist scholars like Lisa Jardine and Dimpna Callahan have highlighted moments of subversion within Marlowe's treatment of female characters, while post-colonial critics such as Ani Alumba have analyzed his engagement with issues of colonization and the other. These modern readings not only enrich our understanding of Marlowe's poetry but also demonstrate its capacity to engage with contemporary concerns, ensuring that it remains a dynamic and evolving force in literary discourse. Moreover, Marlowe's legacy extends beyond the realm of poetry into the broader cultural landscape. His works have inspired countless adaptations in theater, film, music, and visual arts, reflecting their enduring appeal and versatility. Productions of Dr. Faustus and Tamberlan the Great continue to captivate audiences worldwide, while composers and musicians draw inspiration from his verses to create new sonic landscape. Visual artists, too, have long been drawn to the vivid imagery and emotional intensity of Marlowe's poetry, using it as a springboard for their own creative endeavors. This cross-disciplinary resonance speaks to the universality of Marlowe's vision, affirming his status as a poet whose work transcends genre and medium. Perhaps most remarkably, Marlowe's poetry endures not because it offers definitive answers but because it invites continual reinterpretation. The fragmentary nature of his surviving manuscripts, coupled with the ambiguities embedded within his texts, ensures that his work remains a fertile ground for intellectual exploration. Each generation of readers and scholars brings fresh perspectives to bear on his verses, uncovering new meanings and connections that reflect the concerns of their own time. This openness to reinterpretation is a testament to the richness and complexity of Marlowe's artistry, as well as to the enduring power of poetry to illuminate the human experience. In sum, Christopher Marlowe's contribution to English poetry is both foundational and transformative. His innovations in form and style, his fearless exploration of universal themes, and his ability to capture the complexities of the human condition have left an indelible mark on the literary canon. As we reflect on his legacy, it becomes clear that Marlowe's work is not merely a product of its time, but a timeless force that continues to shape the literary landscape. His voice, though silenced prematurely, lives on through the verses he left behind, an eternal flame that illuminates the path for all who seek to explore the infinite possibilities of the written word. Through the corridors of literary history, Marlowe's flame burns brightly, casting light on the intricate interplay between language, emotion, and thought. His poetry serves as a mirror to humanity's aspirations and vulnerabilities, inviting readers to confront their own desires, fears, and moral dilemmas. The universality of his themes, power, love, mortality, ensures that his work remains perpetually relevant, resonating with audiences across diverse cultures and epochs. Whether through the tragic grandeur of Hero and Leander, the pastoral idealism of the passionate shepherd to his love, or the existential questioning embedded in Dr. Faustus, Marlowe's voice speaks to the enduring complexities of the human soul. Marlowe's influence, however, is not confined to the pages of his surviving works. It extends into the very fabric of how we think about poetry itself. By challenging the conventions of his time and experimenting boldly with form and content, he expanded the boundaries of what poetry could achieve. His use of blank verse, for instance, did more than provide a new rhythmic structure. It redefined the relationship between sound and meaning, allowing poets to explore the nuances of human emotion with unprecedented depth and clarity. This legacy of innovation has inspired generations of writers to push beyond established norms, fostering an environment where creativity thrives on reinvention. Furthermore, Marlowe's willingness to grapple with controversial subjects, whether religious skepticism, political intrigue, or forbidden desires, has set a precedent for artistic courage. In an era when conformity often took precedence over individual expression, Marlowe dared to question authority and interrogate societal norms. His unflinching portrayal of characters who defy convention and challenge fate serves as a reminder of the power of art to provoke thought and inspire change. This spirit of rebellion continues to resonate with modern creators, who find in Marlowe's work a model for confronting uncomfortable truths and advocating for greater freedom of expression. Yet, for all its brilliance, Marlowe's legacy is also marked by an aura of mystery and incompleteness. The fragmentary nature of his surviving manuscripts, coupled with the enigmatic circumstances of his life and death, has given rise to endless speculation and debate. Was he truly an atheist? Did he die at the hands of conspirators? Or was his death a tragic accident? These unanswered questions add layers of intrigue to his story, transforming him into a figure as compelling as the characters he created. This blend of genius and mystery has only deepened his allure, ensuring that his name remains synonymous with both artistic achievement and tantalizing uncertainty. In contemporary culture, Marlowe's presence is felt not only in scholarly discourse, but also in popular imagination. His life and works have been the subject of novels, films, and plays, each offering a new interpretation of his enigmatic persona. Works like Anthony Burgess's A Dead Man in Deptford and the 2012 film Timberlane Must Die reimagine Marlowe's final days, weaving together fact and fiction to create narratives that blur the lines between biography and myth. Such adaptations attest to the enduring fascination with Marlowe as both a poet and a historical figure, highlighting the ways in which his legacy continues to evolve in response to shifting cultural contexts. Ultimately, Christopher Marlowe's contribution to English poetry transcends the sum of its parts. It is not merely the technical innovations, thematic explorations, or cultural impact that define his significance, but the profound connection he forged between the written word and the human experience. His poetry captures the essence of what it means to be human, the longing for transcendence, the struggle against limitation, and the beauty of fleeting moments. Through his verses, Marlowe reminds us of the transformative power of language to articulate the ineffable, to bridge the gap between past and present, and to illuminate the shared journey of humanity. As we close this chapter on Marlowe's poetic legacy, it becomes clear that his flame will continue to burn brightly for centuries to come. Each reader who encounters his words carries forward the spark of inspiration, ensuring that his vision endures in the hearts and minds of those who seek truth, beauty, and meaning through the art of poetry. In the end, Marlowe's greatest triumph lies not in the accolades he received during his lifetime, but in the eternal resonance of his voice, a voice that speaks across time, inviting us to dream, to question, and to marvel at the infinite possibilities of the human spirit.